Okay. Do you hear me well from home?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to meet you. My name is Nicola D'Alberton. I'm a research fellow here at the University of Trento, and I'm a member of the UNESCO chair in engineering for human and sustainable development, which is a chair that takes place here. And today I will moderate this webinar that has the name Water Resource Management in the Age of Pollution and Scarcity, Different Approaches and Comparison. I will briefly share a quick presentation to give a framework about our groups of seminar. Screen. Okay, I hope you see properly. So this is the third edition. We've been having two prior editions to this one in the two prior year. This is a group of webinar called Environmental Sustainability and International Comparison Seminars. Okay. During year 2021 and 2022, we had 14 seminars with approximately 32 speakers coming from NGOs, universities, international cooperation agencies, and we have an average of around 40 participants that joined each seminar. Today we're more than the average. And these helped a lot to enhance a broad networking process within, for instance, the speakers and attendants. This year, there is a proposal that is helping us to invite people that is related to Erasmus project that is in collaboration with the University of Valencia and the Polytechnic of Lisboa, that is named ESIC with double E, of which you see the logo on the screen right now. So today is the second meeting, and last 2 weeks ago we had a meeting about biodigestion, waste and technology. Today we'll be talking about water resource management, and we have 3 more meetings about sustainable forestry, mining, and natural-based solution as a response to climate change. Just some quick information for those of you who may be interested in obtaining the F credits. In order to obtain these credits, 75% of attendance is needed, and this means that you should follow 4 out of 5 seminars, either in presence or online. And at the end, a final report will be asked. We will be giving more detailed information about how to do this, and you can find more on our website. So one last picture of the people that take place, the professors and the researchers that take place in the UNESCO chair. Here you briefly can see our faces. And that's it. You can follow us. We have several web pages, Facebook, Instagram. You can follow us on these. Now, let's switch to today's seminar. Today we have 2 invited speakers, and I'm very curious about hearing the presentation of today. First, we will be hearing the presentation of Joe Goodwill that is connected from the US, and then from Davide Tocchetto that is here in presence. So before leaving the floor to Joe, I will give a very brief introduction. So Joe Goodwill is an assistant professor in the Civil and Environmental Engineering department in the University of Rhode Island. His expertise and research topics are mostly related to physiochemical processes and water quality. And he worked as well with several NGOs worldwide, from Asia to Africa and South America. And the name of the intervention will be Moving Beyond Resilience by Considering Antifragility in Potable Water System. So I'm very curious to hear this novel perspective that for designing and operating potable water systems under increasing water quality volatility in a world that is changing. So thank you very, very much. And I leave you, Joe Goodwill, the floor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that introduction. It's great to be here. I will now attempt to share my screen with you. Oops, okay. And let's see. Okay, great. So hopefully you can see that title screen. And can everybody, so everybody can hear and see okay?
Yes, we do.
All right, great. Then I'll go ahead and get started. So thank you for that intro. And yeah, I just want to say once again, I'm excited to give this presentation and thank you all for your attention. I'm going to be talking about a new paradigm that is called antifragility as a way to handle risk of volatility in potable, so drinking water treatment systems. We could consider other systems, but today I'm just going to focus on systems that are producing water that humans are going to consume. Okay, so let me first describe what I mean when I say the word antifragility and how that might play into drinking water treatment plant design. So I'm going to introduce antifragility by briefly discussing 3 Grecian myths that I think are kind of broadly taught to young students in America and Europe, of course. So on the left is Damocles under the sword of Damocles. The middle is a Grecian myth of the phoenix, and the right is Hydra. And I'm not just showing you these to talk about Greek mythology, but all these kind of embody fragility, resilience, and then anti-fragility. And that's what I want to talk about to introduce this concept. So the first is the sword of Damocles. You don't need to really understand the origins of this myth, and I don't frankly understand it all that well, but I do know that the story is that a courtesan of the king remarked that hey, it's probably great to be the king, and then the king said, well, if you think it's so great, you can enjoy all these riches and power that I have, but you need to do so while a sword is dangled over your head. And that embodies the fragile position that many drinking water treatment systems are actually in. So that sword is like a metaphor for having way more downside than upside to change. So if anything changes for this courtesan under the sword, that's going to be bad for him. And so there's this precarious position that individual or that system is always in. And so we can call that fragile. And I have a point here that this a system or a person under this position constantly seeks the present or the past. So because things worked out for me a second ago, I want to position myself so that nothing ever changes. And unfortunately, we don't live in that world, especially in an environmental side, as you all know. So this represents a fragile relationship to risk and volatility. Okay, the next one is the phoenix, which maybe is a little more popular, a little more well-known. The phoenix is a mythological bird that rises from the ashes of itself to be regenerated or reborn. And so the phoenix has equal downside and upside to volatility. If volatility happens or risk is realized, then systems that are positioned like the phoenix will recover maybe relatively quickly and get back to some sort of baseline. And so systems that are behaving in this way have really no preference for the past or the future. They're going to survive no matter what. And so this is really what resilience or robustness is. It's this ability to eventually overcome change and be okay with volatility. And at least in the United States, we are kind of obsessed with resilience right now. It's a buzz phrase. You see it in all our proposals and everything. And it's good. It's certainly a better position to be in than the prior slide with the sword, the courtesan under the sword. But it represents a relationship to risk that is better, but can probably further be improved upon. So antifragility would be embodied by the hydra. If you remember the hydra, that's a mythological like sea serpent type creature. And when you cut off one of the hydra's heads, it grows two heads to replace it. So it gets better or scarier or stronger as it's attacked with volatility, with change. So if you lop off the head of the hydra, two heads grow back. And that's pretty intimidating, right? So it's a powerful position to be in. If you're a system that is oriented like the hydra, when you experience stress or change or you're attacked in some way, you will improve your performance and lead that volatility will lead to better outcomes than if they had never happened. So there's really more upside than downside to volatility. And so in that way, the hydra or systems like the hydra seek the future because the future is going to be better for them than the past. And that's really what anti-fragility is. It's this ability to thrive with change, with pollution, with changes in water supply, things like that. Okay, so that's the introduction to the overall paradigm. It's an approach to risk. And I think I made this point on the last slide. It's non-adversarial with the future. So resilience and robustness still anticipates an adversarial relationship with the future. And I think that's problematic. So when we think about water system design, the anti-fragility question flips the objective and the constraint. So, and I'll talk about the optimality paradigm, which is the way we do it now, but we're going to flip the constraint and flip the objective in a way that does not depend on our ability to predict the future. And ultimately, it'll potentially leads to better water quality with volatility. Okay, so the optimality paradigm, that's the anti-fragile paradigm where I want to go. And the optimality paradigm is kind of what we do now / what we've done historically, at least in the US. So the optimality paradigm, and it's a problem, is where we take a particular situation, being the quality of a reservoir or some water supply, and then we optimize treatment to be low cost to the greatest extent we can based on that historical water quality. So we're making the best of a particular situation. Our drinking water treatment plants are optimized for cost, given water supply and effluent standard constraints. And that's worked fairly well. It's certainly led to low cost water, but it assumes and hopes for stationarity, and that stationarity is not there. So we do this, as I mentioned this a little bit on the last slide, because at least in the United States, we're having a conversation right now as a nation, is water a human right or not? And the way we've kind of at least pushed that conversation forward is to just say, well, we're going to make drinking water as cheap as possible. We're going to optimize our systems such that their cost is sufficiently low that the cost of water supplied by those systems is not a burden for most people. So we optimize our systems to meet that low cost constraint. But when we do that, we're unfortunately making our systems more and more fragile. So as we strive to drive costs lower, we're making systems more susceptible to any volatility or change from assumed stationarity. So I want to present another sports metaphor. I'm going to apologize in advance for this. It's a sports metaphor that I think drives home the optimality paradigm versus the anti-fragile paradigm. And I've got two American sports heroes here, and I will explain both of them briefly. So the person on the left the marathon runner is a person by the name of Meb Keflezighi, and that name doesn't matter. But this person won the Boston Marathon a few years ago. And let's just say that it's sufficiently rare for Americans to win marathons. Most of the time, that goes to individuals that are representing East African or South African nations. But Meb ran a marathon relatively fast in Boston, and he won the gold medal at that event. On the right is Jim Thorpe. 100 years prior, so 100 years ago, Jim Thorpe was another American that won the gold medal in 1912 Olympics in the decathlon. So the decathlon is, of course, a series of 10 events: running, jumping, sprinting, throwing objects, things like that. Okay, so you've got Meb on the left and Jim Thorpe on the right. And the reason why I'm talking about these guys is because it turns out that they run 1.5 kilometers, so about a mile, in about exactly the same time. The difference is that Meb will run 26 of them, and Jim Thorpe only has to run one of them. So hopefully there's an American tradition, and hopefully I think it's pretty universal. But when I was in like grade school, we would have to pick teams for stuff, for like dodgeball or whatever, soccer, right? So they'd be captain and say, okay, who do you want in your team? So I'm going to ask all of you to go through a really brief thought exercise with me, right? And I'm going to ask you all, who would you pick for an athletic event? Who would you pick between Meb Keflezighi or Jim Thorpe if I told you that the event was a marathon? You don't need to think too hard about it. You would obviously pick Meb. Be foolish not to. He's probably the most decorated marathon runner that America has to offer. He'd be a great pick. So Meb's optimized for marathons. That's the point I want to make here. He's really good at doing one thing, marathons. But if I didn't tell you about the event, if I didn't tell you what athletic thing we were going to do, it could be soccer, it could be basketball, it could be whatever, it could be a running thing. If you lack knowledge about the event, and I just said pick somebody for an athletic contest, you'd probably pick Jim Thorpe because he's really not optimized for anything, but he's pretty good at everything, or he was pretty good at everything. And so the point I want to make here is that we're picking, when we design water treatment systems, we're assuming that we know something about the event, but we really don't. And so we end up with systems that are overly optimized. And this optimality paradigm is enshrined in practitioner guidance. So I'm showing you a small picture in the left corner, and that's a picture of a textbook that is highly cited and well regarded to instruct engineers in the design of water supply systems here in the United States, and I think Canada as well. And I don't need you to read the print here in the right-hand corner, but suffice it to say that we enshrine optimality in our practitioner guidance. So the text on the right just says, if the source of water is high quality, you can really optimize the system. For example, leave out sedimentation and maybe coagulation and flocculation, and have a really simple system that'll be sufficiently low cost or very low cost. Basically, pick Meb, in other words, right? But that's a problem because we lack knowledge about future water quality, volatility, or other events. And we can call that the turkey problem, and I'll explain the turkey problem, at least here in the United States. So first off, the tools that we have for designing water treatment systems, namely jar testing and pilot testing, tell us nothing about the future. It's all about the present, and then data that we have inherently only tells us things about the past, or maybe near-term past or nearly present. So we can kind of get tricked into thinking that we know more about the future than we actually do. And I'm citing a paper from Rassman et al. Here that did a beautiful job talking about the types of events like wildfires or droughts or extreme precipitation that might be impacting water systems. So this is just another list of citations of examples of events. Again, hurricanes, population shift, climate change, wildfires, things like that. So we call it the turkey problem. So you may be familiar with an American tradition of Thanksgiving. So it's this meal and like day of being thankful, and it centers around a large meal that typically includes a turkey. And so the catch is to the turkey problem, the turkey doesn't know that Thanksgiving exists. And so the turkey might find itself on a farm, being well fed, well cared for, and experiencing a very high quality of life. And then all of a sudden, because of an event that it cannot understand, right? The turkey lacks knowledge of Thanksgiving, then the happiness of that turkey totally tanks. That is to say that the turkey is slaughtered, right? That might seem like a trivial example, but engineers are in this situation all the time, right? So I'm showing you right now data, this is actual data now, of a population of a city in the United States. I'm not going to tell you what city it is yet, but you can just look at the population changes here and imagine yourself as a designer of a water supply system in 1950 or 1960, right? And this city has experienced explosive growth for the previous decades, right? And you know what size, for example, would you make this treatment system? So similar to the turkey, the engineer lacks knowledge of the future, and so might look at it in 1950 and say, hey, we need to build this system for 250,000 people, or maybe 300,000 people, maybe 500,000 people because of the growth here. However, in this case of this city, it didn't turn out that way at all. So this city experienced a complex socioeconomic phenomenon that we could broadly call globalism. We could call it post-industrialization. We could call it the rise of China, whatever. But it really impacted performance of the drinking water treatment system. City X here is Flint, Michigan, and there were some very well documented lead crises that occurred in Flint, Michigan. Maybe it made international news in Italy, I'm not sure. It was certainly a big deal here. And a big driver for this was that the city did not have a right-sized water supply system because of a halving of the population in the decades following the design of the system they had. Okay, so I know I'm running a little short on time, but I just want to go through some examples now of how we manage that turkey problem in water treatment, drinking water treatment plant design. And then I'll stop there. So some examples. When we have risk, right, or the possibility of event, to put it another way, a potable water system can either be fragile, resilient / robust, or anti-fragile. Those are kind of the three options, the three postures that you can have towards the future. So I just want to give 3 examples of those ways of managing event risk. So the first one is an example from Halifax, Nova Scotia in Canada. This is a drinking water treatment facility that was designed to be MEB Keflezighi. That is to say, it was viewed that the reservoir at Halifax was very high quality. And so the system did not have several physicochemical processes that we would expect in other drinking water treatment systems. So it was a high quality reservoir. And then I want to point out something here that I think is important, especially because international collaboration or situations is a theme of this. So Halifax is in the southeastern edge of Canada, very near the New England, like where I live in New England, United States. And to put it one way. It is downwind. The jet stream kind of curves, and it is downwind of major manufacturing activity in the United States. So the United States implemented amendments to the Clean Air Act that were very stringent and required industrial activity in the United States to drastically decrease the amount of sulfur dioxides that were produced in air pollution. So, as you might recall, sulfur dioxides, one of the reasons why they're air pollutants is they contribute to acid rain. And so what had been happening through the early 1900s, mid 1900s, up until like 2000s, was that the United States, industrial activity in the United States was depositing acid rain in Canada. And because of that, the pH of the Halifax Reservoir and many other surface water bodies in Nova Scotia was suppressed, was lower. And then in the 1990s, with the passage of Clean Air Act amendments in the United States, the pH of Canadian water started rising. And as the pH of that water rose, the waters became more productive, meaning that there was more algae and more natural organic matter produced in that water. And that began choking the plant. The plant was not designed for a reservoir with high amounts of algae, with high amounts of organic carbon. And so you can see the data plotted on the right. As the water became more productive, as measured by raw water color, required alum doses went up and up and up. This is a picture of a plant struggling. This is a picture of a plant choking to death. And so Halifax was negatively impacted by something the United States did, unintended, of course. But I guess the point I want to make here is that this is the turkey problem. So a Halifax engineer, a Canadian engineer, would have had to be aware of air quality changes in a neighboring country in order to get this right. Okay, so that's fragile. That's bad. And I'm going to skip this slide for the sake of time. I think I made this point. One example of resilience is from my hometown of Providence, Rhode Island. Really briefly here, because I know I'm short on time. The Providence Reservoir, or the Providence drinking water system, experienced stress during the COVID-19 pandemic. So you might be familiar with trihalomethanes or other disinfection byproducts that are produced in drinking water as an unintended consequence of water chlorination. And suffice it to say that when water stagnates in distribution systems and water ages go up, disinfection byproducts like THMs or trihalomethanes also increase. And so you can see data on the right, but what happened during the COVID-19 pandemic is that everyone quarantined, commuting patterns changed, and folks weren't going to the large city of Providence and going about their business. They weren't ordering coffees, they weren't going to the bathroom, they weren't washing their hands because no one was there. And so with those changes in patterns, water age went way up. And then you can see the spike in trihalomethanes that occurred when Rhode Island declared a state of emergency. So luckily, Providence Water had a switch-on solution for trihalomethanes. They had an aeration system in several of their distribution system water supply tanks, and that allowed for aerative stripping of THMs, which are slightly volatile. And so because of this, when stressed, Providence Water could return to some baseline and still get satisfactory performance. And so I consider this to be an example of resilience. They're functioning like the Phoenix in this case. They're experiencing stress. There is some high levels of THMs, but then they recover to levels that are more satisfactory. Okay, and my last example for anti-fragile, and then I'll stop. I want to just mention some drinking water treatment systems in Connecticut that use manganese oxide coated filter media as a way to deal with manganese contamination issues. I don't have time to go into depth of this process, but I have some very simple chemical equations included on this slide that show soluble Mn2 adsorbing to MnOX, or manganese oxides. And then in the presence of free chlorine, that adsorbed manganese is readily oxidized into additional coating. And the process is therefore autocatalytic, or automatically accelerates. And you can see a picture of this coating in panel A on this slide. It's this white material that is encapsulating this grain of anthracite. And so this coating builds and builds. And as it builds, there are more sites to absorb more manganese. And so this is a picture then of antifragility. The more manganese that's present in a drinking water reservoir or in groundwater, the better the treatment is. So this is a positive relationship with the future, or with water quality stress, and it does not require knowledge or prediction of raw water manganese. If you look at the picture on the right, as raw water manganese concentrations increase, the combined filter effluent manganese concentration, that is to say, the manganese level in the water that was distributed to customers, is actually going down. So as things get worse, the treatment gets better. And this is a fundamentally different relationship with the future. Now you're not stressed about what if there's climate change and the manganese concentrations go up. You almost kind of want it to go up, because then your treatment is better. There are other examples of this in water treatment, and I'll save those for another day. And I'll just kind of end this with a quote from Abraham Lincoln, who was a president in the United States in the mid-1800s, during the period where the United States was experiencing a civil war. And his quote is, "Do I not destroy my enemies when I make them my friends?" And this was a reference. Abraham Lincoln was asked why he wasn't being tougher on his vanquished opponents in the southern United States. And I think this is says something about antifragility, right? So in this way, we've kind of made manganese, or made the stress, our friend. And it's really by doing that we can have a more sustainable relationship with it. So I know I went a little bit over. Thank you for your patience, and I'll happy to take questions later on. I just want to thank a few folks. Well, I guess maybe I'll skip it. You can read their names here. I will mention that I want to thank University of Trento for inviting me. It was great to be a part of this, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joe. It was very interesting, and yeah, and it's nice. And I was thinking as well that Hydra has somehow a bad appearing, if related to, I don't know, to the Phoenix. So I don't know, like some philosophical thoughts about image.
Yeah.
Okay, I would like to thank you very much. Maybe like before going to question, we can hear the second intervention that will last approximately 20 to 25 minutes, I guess. And then we can have a little bit of debate all together. So yeah, I would like to welcome Davide Tocchetto. He's an agronomist. He has a PhD in environmental agronomy. And he will be talking about wetlands and how to use plants to remove pollution from waters. He will talk about about his expertise, and especially he will explain us about some contexts that are very interesting. For instance, Iraq, Gaza Strip, Ecuador, Algeria, and so I'm very curious to hear about his contribution. We will be sharing from here. Okay.
Thank you, Nicola. Thank you, Nicola. Thank you, Marta, for inviting me. I'm sorry for my English, but I lost my Cambridge English when I started working in Iraq, Kenya, New Mexico, and also Turkey, etc. Anyway, we try to be my best here. As Nicola said, I am an agronomist and I have a PhD in environmental agronomy. Then when I start my research activity for the graduation thesis at Padua University, I fall in love with the use of plants to clean up the wastewater. I am an agronomist. I always study plants to do something. Food, nature, hedgerow, forest, etc., or garden, etc. Then I find a way to use the plants to clean up the environment, in particular the wastewater. Then I start to use treatment wetland. What is a treatment wetland? For me, is a very simple thing because I'm not an engineer. I'm an agronomist. I use plants. Then I start studying because 20 years ago, we was the first university group in Italy that started to do research in this sector. Then we collect a lot of data, experiments, etc., to use the wetland plants to uptake pollution, removal, heavy metals, etc. And for me, the use of treatment wetland is very simple because I have to use plants, the right plants. I have to realize a square basin with gravel inside, a liner, a pipe as an inlet, and a pipe as an outlet. Very simple for me. It's not a build, it's not a skyscraper, it's not a bridge somewhere, you know. It's just a basin with something inside, and they use our rights plants. What is, I don't know if you study the treatment wetland, it's very simple, and it's a system that is used worldwide from the north of Europe to the south of America, from South America to the North America, from China to everywhere, you know. Then I will present 4 examples of my activities in the last 20 years. Here we are in Algeria, somewhere in the northern part of the Sahara Desert, but not in the middle of the Sahara. You know, it's not a sand area, it is a rock, small rock area. And it's a beautiful long way to reach the city of Temasin. It is, you can see, this is Algeria. This is Algeria, this is Sicily, Tunisia, Libya, Morocco, etc. We are not in the middle of the Sahara Desert. We are somewhere in the north. That means for me, that I study the climate, etc. It is a windy, cloudy, sometimes rain. It is a useful information for me to understand the climate and which plants I can use there. Then I start to understand where I'm going to do something. Temasin is a city, is a big city in an oasis. You can see the green. Part of these images are date palms. The white are salt situation in the desert because there is a lot of evapotranspiration. Water go out, I'm in the salt season, and nothing can do where there is the salt. Then everybody live only in a strict area of the desert. You know? I go there and we design a system and we work with the municipality. And this project was done in 2009, the realization, and the building in 2007, more or less. Then we realized something strange for me because when I started studying, they said to me, the engineer in America and in Germany said the treatment wetland had to be rectangular shape because these are an hydraulic condition, the plug-in condition, you know, inlet, outlet, go on straight. We realized an half moon, you know. Why an half moon? Because it is the part of the Algerian flag. There is a moon, and also there is a star. Here there is a forest star with some fruit. And how it's possible to have an inlet and an outlet? Because inside the half moon we put a banks, a small wall. Then we have a big S inside, and the water moves from the inlet to the outlet. Very simple for me because I'm not an engineer. But anyway, we find a solution to realize a beautiful garden, you know, with an engineering need. Okay. Which plants here? You know, we are in the desert. What can I do here? I have to share and find the right plant that is able to live in the desert, in that situation, in that condition. And also for me, it was important. Okay, we made the best and the beautiful system in Algeria. I want that this system work for a lot of years, you know. Then we decide to use local plants, something that we are able to use, to cut, to manage, because we realize now, but this is it's not a garden. It's a treatment wetland, and we need the treatment of wastewater here, just to preserve the environment, the water table, etc. 2004, no plants here. 2009, we realized it. I was there in January of 2009, and there are a lot of pictures there with the security situation, etc. This is the other picture in 2014. The system is here. You can see for me is a result. Plants still live inside my half moon. That means that is working. You know, this is not a traditional or municipal treatment system with a pump, engineering, and energy, etc. This work with the plants. If I see the plants, for me it's work. It's a positive work. This is a picture in 2019 or 14 again. No, 19 this one. This is our last November 22. You know, or less 13 years. Okay, still working in the desert of Sahara. You know, it's a miracle for me. This is the image for yesterday. This is Sentinel up. Sorry, but just to change the satellite. You can see the half moon here. Okay, no pixel now, but you know, I believe it is okay. And I have a PhD. We like to have data. We like to make everything good. Okay. After 1 month, you can see we have a good treatment performance. I'm joking a little bit, but this is a serious data set. You know, it's working. Yes, no plants inside after 1 month, more or less. But what can I say? There is a reduction of pollution. Which kind of pollution? For me, the pollution that is related with the sedimentation, BOD, COD, solids, etc. When the plants start growing after 1 year, you know, I can see also the reduction of nitrogen because there is a root system here, there is a plant uptake, there is a biomass growing, etc. Obviously, we make a lot of analysis of the water here. Every year we collect a sample and we have a lot of publication about this, and you can see 95, 91, 88, 91, 70, etc. Still working after 15 years of operation. We are not in Trento, not in Milan, not in New York, you know, but we are somewhere in the desert. You know, it's a good system for me. Then I moved to Gaza Strip. We work in Gaza Strip 2 times with a small team of international team of experts. You know, we move inside with a beautiful car. You know, it's a dream for me because we, wow, the United Nations cars. You know, it's so important to move there with security reason. I ran here 2 projects. One was a beautiful and interesting project for the United Nations with an Archistar, with the Bank of Kuwait funding system. We realized one of the most schools in the world, but only design, but nobody are able to realize something like this inside the Gaza Strip. You know, the concept is fantastic because this is a sustainability school, wind power, solar energy, save water, reuse gray water, reuse black water. There is a cooling system inside a beautiful column in the school, etc. It's a beautiful design, but never be able to realize it because we are inside Gaza. This was a label for United Nations. We want to do something beautiful inside Gaza, but you know there is a problem in Gaza between many different situations. And we only decide this, we make a lot of survey there, we collect a lot of data, we meet a lot of people, but nobody was able to realize it. Outside the school, there are 2 gardens, and for me it was the treatment wetland. One for the gray waters of the sink, of the kitchen, the shower, I remember, and the one with the edge outside is for the black water, just to keep a security about the hygienic conditions of the people there. The most interesting thing to work in Gaza with the United Nations was a collaboration with the local engineer. You know, we are in Gaza, or we are in Amman, we are in Jerusalem to do something, but I found a lot of good engineering with the precise work. Okay, I send them DVG, I send them a lot of mail. We go there with a lot of packet, the design and blueprints. They was able to measure, to collect, to make calculations, etc. You know, but we are not in Milan, New York. You know, we were in Gaza Strip, so somewhere closer in the wall area. You know, it was so exciting to work with them because we went there 2 times, and I found a lot of correction. Okay, we went there to check everything. That's the result for us. Pay attention to it. Very, very interesting collaboration with them. Then we do another project. Is a small kindergarten for the Bedouin community. We realized something similar of the other beautiful school, but small. We realize a garden inside to keep the temperature low inside the garden. The people go there to play, to spend time, to have the lunch, etc. There is the school and the teacher. Everything was good because the plant will grow. As I say to you, when I see the plants growing inside my system, everything is good. But there was a problem in Israel. They bombing the system and the school also. I'm not so lucky to work in Gaza Strip, but anyway, nobody died here, fortunately. But I have a lot of video of the students, the small students, go there to search for the book and for the backpack, etc. It was very sad to see the people working inside. And the Israeli during the war in 2014, they bombing it. Then I moved to Ecuador. It's a beautiful place in Ecuador, somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic, the Pacific forest. Inside, we are here more or less 200 meter, no, 2,000 meters above sea level, in the middle of the forest, where I I found a lot of friends living in a beautiful house. The problem of my new friends, these are more or less 200 pigs living and working in the middle of the forest there. And there is a problem because nobody cares about the sludge and the wastewater, because they send the wastewater of this pig farm into a natural river. You see, okay, there is a lot of beautiful vegetation, but who created vegetation? Nitrogen, phosphorus, and a lot of wastewater. You know, I'm not an environmentalist, but I'm not able to when I see this thing. Then I was contacted by a student of mine that is working there, and they called me, teacher, please, we have to solve this situation. And I remember more or less 2016 or 17, no WhatsApp, only Skype. We do a lot of beautiful ex-meet by Skype with him to design, to do something there. You know, this situation was every day, okay? Every day for every year, more or less for 10 years. A lot of wastewater go inside. There is a beautiful vegetation. This is the reason, okay? Then we decided to divert the channel with the wastewater from the river to the first sedimentation tank. We designed it with the wastewater volume. We made a lot of calculation. We are not engineers, but we are able to do the calculations here. We had the first sedimentation tank, that we had the second one, and we send everything to the first, second, and third treatment wetland system. And as you can see, that another important thing to do this kind of project in this situation is to work with less energy input, because I don't know if there is energy here. And they decided to design everything by gravity, if it's possible. Otherwise, we will find a solution, but I don't know. Then we realized 3 treatment wetland cell. Find the gravel here. It's not easy to find the gravel in Ecuador. We will collect it in another place and send the truck here. And we plant with vetiver. Vetiver is a fantastic plant that is able to grow everywhere with a good and long, straight root system. Not too wide, but go down the deep, and is able to grow everywhere from pH 4 to 8, from temperature. It's fantastic. It is not a weed, you can control it, and everything goes good because you can see plants are growing. Then we move to Iraq. This is the street from Basra to Nasiriyah, and this water that you can see here is the southern part of the wetland of Mesopotamia, or the Garden of Eden. Okay. Okay, this is a beautiful picture. I'm not a photographist, but if you go there, you are able to do this kind of beautiful picture because everything is beautiful. You can see a golden sunset and also the golden dawn in the morning. It's fantastic. You know, I'm not a photographer, but you are able to do this kind of thing. And I will show you a beautiful video now. No audio. Only a few seconds, don't worry. This is the Garden of Eden, you know. This is a pipe, a black pipe that is throwing 2,000 cubic meters a day. of wastewater into the garden video, the marshland, the Iraq, the Mesopotamia. And this is the team of engineer, not me, but this Jassim is a local engineer, very famous, work with the ministry. And these are the team of engineer in Iraq, working with the research center of the marshland, of the Garden of the Eden, and also the Ministry of Water Resources. We were in touch with them to realize something spectacular, because we are not environmentally, because all the team is engineer. We want to remove this wastewater from this beautiful place, because there is a lot of people that fish there. There is the child that go inside to swim. There is the buffalo. Somebody 2 times a day will call the buffalo and milk them, everything as everywhere where there is a black pipe, And if we are in Italy, we pass 2 words, and there is a martyr dome where they go there to pray for the martyr of the 2 wars in Iraq, and also the Saddam period. Like in Italy, everywhere in Italy we have somewhere to pray for the soldier. Yeah. I was contacted 10 years ago to collaborate in the design and realization of this water garden. An artist called me and said, David, I want to realize a beautiful garden in Iraq, but we want to water it, because we are in the south, no water, no river. The river, Euphrates River, is a salty river. There's a lot of problem. It's not easy to find clear water to water something. It is not food or wheat. They called me to realize this kind of system, and I will explain the story. This is the artist. She was inspired because she have a lot of vision. Okay, she's an artist in Santa Fe in New Mexico, and she said, I see a beautiful carpet. I visualize a beautiful garden. Okay, then we want to realize a wastewater garden at a treatment wetland, and this is your scope now. Okay, then I raise the carpet because I don't care about it. I get the garden. They designed this. We have the Euphrates, we have the tigers, we have a common channel side, we have the square. There is something related to the beautiful carpet. Then my work was, okay, let's transform this garden in a treatment wetland system for me. And then I decide where is the horizontal flow, where to put the water, where to put the pump, where to put the septic tank, where the inlet, where the outlet, which kind of plants. They asked me, okay, we have to use many different plants, maybe from biblical or Quran origin. And then we start to read the Bible to find which kind of plant there is in the Bible that I have to use in the garden. Okay, very strange, but so changing for me. This is a beautiful and so competitive project because we are dealing with a lot of futuristic things as a SDG of United Nations, a lot of it. And also we were awarded by UNESCO Citizen as a green project 2 years ago. And it was so important for us because we were one of the 100 projects in the world with the label of UNESCO. So only for design, because we started design 10 years ago and we start the realization 1 month ago. Then we keep our patience and we push and push. We passed 3 presidents in Iraq, a lot of Ministry of Water. We changed from Ministry of Water Resource to Ministry of Environment. Then we came back to a Ministry of Water Resource. We were everybody go there to do something. We met a lot of people, 3 municipalities, etc. We stayed there and work and push the project on. And more or less in the middle of February, we started to do something around the pipe. You can see it's work again, but we realized the bank of the system. We start to realize this part, the external one with the surface treatment wetland, where we put the black wastewater into the area, perimeter wall. Then we are waiting to move this water from this kind of system to the beautiful garden that we will realize next year. And like you can see, this is the garden, but under the garden there is a treatment system. Okay. And I work more or less 5 years to decide which kind of pipe, because we are in Iraq, not here. I had to buy the liner, the pipe, the tank. For example, there is no tanks in Iraq, no concrete tanks like here. 80-centimeter tanks, not able to have it. You have to realize it in Iraq, directly in the site. Or I have to buy somewhere in India or in Arabia if they have. Or I have to make a container from Italy to send there, for example, which is the strange thing to work there. But anyway, we are able to do something. I'm going to finish. These are a few other projects here. Okay, these are other projects in Ecuador. As you can see, there is a big slope in this mountain. We are working for a chocolate factory. You know, chocolate in Ecuador is a good production, but it is also a wastewater coming out of the chocolate production. The washing machine, they clean everything, etc. We realize 3 basins with a beautiful slope situation. This is the Bosconero Hut here in Veneto region. And this is, this started working in 2006 and still works. Okay, we are in the north face of a mountain, 1,500 meters above sea level. Okay, still work with local plants. We collect a lot of data of wastewater treatment, etc. And also sometimes, 20 years ago, I designed a floating wetland, and also we realized a lot of beautiful floating wetland to remove pollution into channel, into canal, into river, into lake, etc. And there is a lot of thing about the nature here because we have a lot of birds, snakes, frogs, etc. floating into the lake. I'm going to finish. The second part of my work is to do something for farming and the cooperation somewhere. I do something in Casamance in Senegal with the cashew production. There are a good friend there that product organic cashew, and they start to sell here in Italy and also in Europe. I work in Kenya for a women farm to produce local food for the market and also for the families. Then I fight with a woman in Senegal again with the best cooking for the peanuts, etc. And the last one, I'm not at the end of my career, but I wrote an easy and a very simple book about my daily life with that people in Gaza, in Iraq, and also in other part of Kenya and Africa. Then I just want to show you because everybody read it and they say, okay, it's a good reading to understand how is the culture. So it is not a tourist book or a workbook. It's just how they live, what I've done, what I wait, what I eat, what I talk with the people there. That's all for me. Okay. Thank you.
Well, very nice, very nice. And now maybe we have a bit of time for like giving floor to the people that are interested in it. I think it was very nice presentation. So we saw basically a more focus on approaches on water quality, and then several case studies that were very interesting to me. Maybe in order to break the ice and to connect a little bit the two topics, I would like to ask maybe Joe. Hope you have time. You don't have to. Yeah, if like antifragile, let's say, perspective can be used even like in the case of effluent treatment, like the case that we've been talking about. And if I don't know, like maybe you should see more in detail, but if from a first sight on the case studies that were introduced, which kind of element may be considered anti-fragile or eventually more Phoenix style, or you can give us like a quick overview on this topic. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think my answer in general terms is that biology tends to be anti-fragile. So yes, in wetland type systems and systems like we just heard about, or more broadly, biology and selective evolutionary pressures can produce anti-fragile outcomes. So I am more familiar with larger centralized systems, right? But in those situations, we certainly have examples of biology being stressed and improving performance as a result. So I showed some examples of manganese treatment using physics and chemistry, adsorption being physical chemical process, but manganese on the drinking water side can also be treated microbiologically in bioactive filters and exhibit the same types of performance where we see manganese concentrations go up and we see improved effluent concentrations. So yeah, that's biology is a rich area to look to. And frankly, and I'll speak for the US here, in the United States, we are not so quick to embrace using biology to produce potable water. That's not something that is widespread, and I think it could be leveraged in a way to improve antifragility, so to speak.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know if you want to add something, or maybe we can switch to more questions. I don't know, like you can either people online can write them in the chat, or I don't know. Okay, not yet. Or someone in presence. If there are any questions, please feel free to.
I have a question to Davide. I was just wondering, is on. Okay, if you can hear me. What would you suggest to someone who would like to implement wetlands in a data scarcity context? Like, how do we know if wetland technology suits a particular kind of environment, or if it's effective in one?
The problem is related to vegetation and also the season of the area where you are working. Because for me, it's simple to work in Iraq or in Senegal or in Kenya or in Nigeria, because I know it is a warm climate. But I know there are a lot of good examples also in Denmark, or somewhere in Canada, or somewhere in Hokkaido in the northern part of Japan. Which is the difference? The difference is related to the type of wastewater that you're working on, and also the type of plants that you're using, because plants is the key factor of the wetland system. You can choose from aesthetic one to the more efficient one, but you have to keep in mind that they are working from the summertime to the fall time. Only the plants, but under the gravel there is a lot of system. It is a root system, a rhizosphere, etc., that still work during the winter time. I have a lot of data about the Hokkaido area in the northern part of Japan, where my friend in December, November, January, February collect a lot of wastewater samples and then make analysis. Okay, it's work also in winter time. Why? Because the bacteria still live inside the gravel system, and also the plant are able to take something because the root system still live alive during winter time. It's the dead vegetation, but the root system is still alive. That's the key factor to choose or to find if the wetland is suitable for different climatic situation. Then you have to keep in mind which kind of wastewater you are fighting. Because it comes from industrial with a lot of emittents or low pH or I don't know something, you have to remember that you're working with bacteria and plants. You have to do something before. For example, if I design, when I design few system for a winery, this kind of wastewater is a black or dark red with a pH around 3. What can I do? I have to put this wastewater into a big tank, wait 5 to 7 days, then I can put in a treatment water, because during these days the pH grow up around 4 or 5. It is suitable for the bacteria. And the key factor for me is the weather condition, the plants, and the type of water.
Anyone else has questions?
I have a very silly and envy question for you, Davide. How could all these people find you to involve you in those projects? I mean, you have a lot of opportunity to work abroad, and I think that many of us are amazed about your experience, and how could it possible?
Yeah, first of all, I started in 2008 with a blog.
Okay.
You know what is a blog? No social network, okay, because Facebook was at the beginning. I have a blog with a lot of visits. My blog was wetlands.blogspot.com, the one from Google environment, you know, and more or less around 1,000 views every month. Wow. My blog, what? It's impossible. But it was in the beginning of this era, you know. And many people call me, work together. Then I get a lot of friends. But the beautiful thing, sometimes they call me for something in Africa, you know. And what to do? The first thing I suggest to do, go there. They ask me to, let's go to do something in Iraq. Okay, when we go there. Okay, I have to work with them. We can write a lot of mail. We can WhatsApp something, etc. But if you don't go there, nothing is possible. It's very, very difficult.
Okay, but if I understood well, it's not your main work. I mean, you do it for passion, let's say.
No, for passion.
Okay. Because I mean, I think that you spend a lot of time also, I mean, as a hobby for dealing with all this stuff and for networking and also for designing. So
then I have a lot of friends. If I need an hydraulic engineer, I call an hydraulic engineer. If I need something, I call something somebody. So yeah, you know Indiana Jones.
yeah.
Okay, so let's see, because I also teach at high school. And sometimes I spend a lot of Christmas times, Easter time, of Carnival days somewhere in Africa. Or when I was in Tanzania, I go there for two days in Tanzania, 1 day of trip, and one for coming back. Then in 4 days, I go back in Tanzania and see a lot of cultivation there and come back. Or I went in Iraq for 3 days. So to go in Iraq, I mean, you have to go somewhere in Istanbul, then wait the night flight to go in Basra, then wait somebody here to give you the visa or your taxi driver. Then you go there, do something, and then come back. I enjoy that.
Yeah, nice, amazing.
That's the reason why I wrote the book.
Yeah.
Just to explain how to travel somewhere in an easy way. Because, you know, Iraq is 5 hours from Italy.
That's quite close.
Yeah, I went in Babylon, I went in Civile because I was there Sunday morning.
So, thank you. One question for Joe and then one for you. Joe, looking looking forward to see you when you will be here as visiting professor. So we will try to go on in this dialogue. But my curiosity is about the technological level of your applications, in sense of the sustainability for local application in contexts in which it's a bit difficult to transmit the sense of the combination of the technology with the daily life of people, as you, David was explaining, trying to explain. And so I think that comparing the two different intervention or contribution, probably your experience looks a bit more complicated. How to deal with the need of simplify the technologies in order to hand over the technologies to people, local people, public administrations, etc. In the lack of knowledge, and especially in lack of resources.
Yeah, that's a very important question. Thank you for asking it. So I have been focused on small rural water system in the United States. In the US, we're actually a country of relatively low population density, and that sometimes is not doesn't come to the forefront of mind when we think about the United States, but it's a relatively large country with a lot of small towns. And what that means is that we have a lot of small water systems. So I believe it's something like 90% of our systems by number serve less than 10,000 people. So for every New York City, there are 9 other towns in the state of New York that I can't name, and others can't name either. And those towns have citizens that are that deserve adequate, sustainable, potable water and wastewater. And the technologies that we deploy are oftentimes deployed with large systems in mind. So I've made it an aim of mine to, as you mentioned, develop technologies that are more simplified. That doesn't mean don't perform adequately. I think it's a grand design question for us as environmental engineers. How do we ensure adequate performance in a way that is appropriate for small systems? And then we can take this question outside the United States, of course, and look at developing economies globally and see that we also have a dire need for treating water broadly in a way that's simple. So in my work that was mentioned briefly in my bio in like South America, for example, or Sub-Saharan Africa, we don't have great tools to treat water, right? So we if we want to supply drinking water, we can dig a well and pump water out of the ground and hope that that's of adequate quality to deliver to citizens. And if it's not, the tools in the tool belt get relatively rare. And so we need to do a better job as environmental engineers to fill that gap. And I think I've got a couple of ideas that are worthy of exploration, and I look forward to doing that in the context of my Fulbright sabbatical at Trento this time next year. Thanks for the question.
So I have a question for you about the very simple management, it seems, of your plants. What about sediments? And we're supposed to take care of the maintenance, monthly maintenance or year by year. Have you got a system specifically for each plant, or is there simply leave to the local human resources to take care of this maintenance.
The question for the sediment is to don't permit the sediment to go inside the treatment water because of the clogging. Okay, we arrived in Italy in the early 19 years, and we start work with treatment water after Germany and after United Kingdom, and they send the wastewater, raw wastewater into the treatment water without any sedimentation tank before. Then we start to work in Italy after the 90s, and we start to work with the septic tank before the wetland. What we can do with the sediment, we can compost it, for example, in that kind of system. For example, in Algeria, they will do compost there because there is a lack of organic matter in the soil somewhere, also in the date farm cultivation. I don't know in Senegal, but sorry, in Iraq, but the project in Iraq will receive wastewater after a switch tank where the sediment will come down. They will remove it. But I suppose they will send it somewhere in front of the river or in a field somewhere in the city. Probably about the sedimentation is to remove it before entering in the treatment water. By my point of view, it is an organic material. You can do compost and use it somewhere in the park.
Other questions, I think, very briefly, what about your next mission, field mission in the large side of the moon?
Yeah,
Because you was everywhere, so
another
just
secret,
one place is missing.
another secret is to be patient a lot because
Apart from jokes, it's
No, I'm not
really
joking.
in the context of scarcity of oxygen, scarcity of plants, places,
I'm working.
how to deal with it.
I'm waiting for data from a Mexican project northwest of the capital city, which is Mexico City. No,
Yeah, in Mexico.
Mexico,
the
the capital of Mexico. Okay, we are waiting the data of a village of 300 people. They are sending black pipe into a lake. Okay, it is a touristic lake, a beautiful lake, etc. But if you see this picture in summertime, there are a lot of green water with a lot of green plants over there, but a lot of boat with the people fishing. But it's possible. You send your ship into the lake, then you can fish swimming there, and you can fish inside. It's not possible. They are working in this kind of a small project, but we are dealing with the weather season, a lot of rain season, a lot of drought during the wind season. Waiting the data, who is able to manage it because we are working not in the city center, we are working in a rural area. We have to find the people that is able to manage it, you know. That's for me the new challenge. And my dream is to work somewhere in the Caribbean area or in Fiji. Not for the vacation, but maybe. But because I know they need a lot of wastewater treatment, because the beach are beautiful, the sea is beautiful, the fish is good, but I know that there is a black pipe somewhere that go outside in the cover reef or under a sandbox somewhere, 200 meters from the shore.
If you consider that according to a report by UN Water, the recent report, the percentage of the wastewater not treated all around the world is more than 90%.
Yeah.
So
In
we are
Italy,
very
it's
lucky in the
75,
European
yeah.
Union. We have a directive. Now we are trying to change it, improve the regulations, but we have a regulation and plan. And also in Italy, we are not complying in all the communities. We are obliged, as you know, to have a wastewater treatment and to channelize for municipalities with more than 2,000 inhabitants equivalent. And we are obliged, or every municipality has the duty to do it. But after collecting wastewater, what to do with wastewater with no plants available in the surrounding? It's a tragedy even for Italy. So I imagine places where it's not possible to invest because plants are costly.
Yeah, and are able to grow in the wastewater.
And so the nature-based solution like yours are really significant in that context, really.
I agree. Yeah. But the other beautiful thing of this kind of work, my treatment weather system, is that you are able to have a lot of wastewater that is treated, that you can use for irrigation of green area. You can do an orchard, you can do a fruit plant somewhere. It is not potable water for Joe, but it is good water for irrigation, for a garden, for something. So in practice, for example, in Ingegneria, the wastewater after the treatment will go in the ditch for the irrigation, the sub-irrigation of the date population. And also in Iraq, we are working with a big project of United Nations Food Programme, because they want to realize a beautiful greenhouse within my treated wastewater. Okay, I can't say no because they are the United Nations, you know, but they have to be able to get my water and to realize something in that context. That's the answer to you. Do you want to realize this beautiful castle somewhere in Iraq? Okay, you can do it, but you have to be prepared or ready to realize something beautiful in that context, where people without a degree, where people no work there, where people want to escape because it is very warm, salt water. There is a security problem sometimes.
Okay. Please, Joe, if you have to go, like, feel free. Then I will read maybe one last thing that was written.
Yeah, I think I can stick around for one more question.
Okay. This is, I think it's more an observation. Francesca Villa is writing, hello everybody, sorry for not speaking, but I am on field in Lebanon and the connection is terrible. Thanks, Joe, it was really interesting, and I am thinking that this approach can be applied also to other aspects of environmental engineering. I am sizing waste treatment plants in a country shifting from a crisis to another.
Yeah, I'll just comment really briefly. Absolutely. I think there are numerous and rich opportunities to deploy the anti-fragility paradigm in many other aspects of environmental engineering. I focus on potable water systems because that's a specialty area for me and just what I think about most of the time. But yes, please consider this in other aspects of environmental engineering, and I look forward to talking more about that in the future with all of you at Trento.
And then she was saying, I would like to ask to Davide if he has any experience in applying treatment wetlands to dump site leachate, even if I know that its composition may be more problematic than sewage wastewater.
Yeah, I can answer very easily because there are a lot of projects here in Europe and also in North America. The problem is not the dump leakage, but the problem is the accumulation of heavy metals in the root system. I don't know if you see me, the root system work to take nutrients and water, but when there are a lot of heavy metals, it is not possible for the plants to uptake heavy metals. Heavy metals remain outside the root, into the root zone. That's the secret. We are working to concentrate the heavy metals into a small area instead of sending it somewhere in the rivers or in a leach drain, etc. That's the secret, to work with the treatment wetland within this kind of leachate. There are a lot of projects in in Ireland, in Chicago area, and also I designed something in Sardinia 10 years ago. And obviously you have to use the right plants like Carex, Juncus, etc., because they are the best one for the root system to not uptake but absorb heavy metals around the root system inside the gravel area. But it's possible. There are a lot of list of plants that are able to absorb this kind of matter. And not many plants are able to uptake. Few of these are cabbage or marijuana. They are able to uptake, but not many heavy metals. Some also cabbage, many species of cabbage and cannabis. Yes, sure. We do something with cannabis with the pig's wine, wastewater in Padua when I work in Padua University, and a lot of native methods. What is possible?
Nice. Thank you very much. I think, yeah, I think if there are no more questions, that's all. I would like to thank you very, very much, David and Joe. It was a pleasure to have you here, and I found it very, very interesting. I would like to ask you if you have the slides to share, if you can send us, and if you have some adding materials that you would like to share with the students and people following, if you can share them with me, and then I will be providing the material. So thank you very much. I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Only one last thing. Next meeting will be in the 19th of April, and we'll be discussing about forestry, sustainable forestry. And yeah, you're all invited to follow us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe.